Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. We're going to talk about what a Bitcoin spot ETF means for the price of Bitcoin, especially if you're holding Bitcoin, and perhaps even more importantly, if you haven't bought any yet and you're waiting for a lower price. Please watch this video. Also, we need to talk about price manipulation. Will this Bitcoin spot ETF open the door for far more manipulation? So if you're into this video, I appreciate it if you hit like and hit subscribe if you find these to be informative. We put out videos every single day in an effort to keep you up to date on everything that has to do with this cryptocurrency, crazy cryptocurrency world. So right off the bat, let's start with a difference between a futures ETF and a spot ETF. There's a Bitcoin futures ETF that was launched in October of 2021. And what that allows for is companies to offer an exchange traded fund, but the underlying asset is not real Bitcoin. It is basically contracts to buy or sell Bitcoin in the future. So it's not real Bitcoin, and this actually does allow for far more manipulation than just a spot ETF because you don't have to settle these contracts in real Bitcoin. Basically, you can bluff your way to manipulate the price with a futures ETF without actually having real skin in the game, real exposure to the real asset that is Bitcoin. And a spot ETF requires the company that wants to launch it to hold real Bitcoin, real on-chain, verifiable, auditable Bitcoin in a custodial manner to be able to launch this product. So there's far more transparency and less wiggle room for them to, try to bluff their way into whatever price they want Bitcoin to go that day. So if a Bitcoin spot ETF doesn't allow for more price manipulation, why are people getting so excited over it? Well, first of all, hello, we've been having a bear market for quite some time now. Some are saying it's the longest bear market ever. And so any good news is just welcomed with big open arms with this cryptocurrency community is huge because it means that it affirms the belief that institutional investors have always wanted to have exposure to Bitcoin, and it's been a regulatory nightmare for them to gain exposure to it, especially in the US. And with this approval, it's going to have companies like BlackRock, which has $9.4 trillion worth of assets under management. We have Franklin Templeton has $1.3 trillion worth of assets under management. Invesco has $538 billion worth of assets under investment. And that's just three out of several more companies that also have billions of dollars worth of assets under management that all want to get their hands on Bitcoin to provide a Bitcoin spot ETF. And that's my second point here, is that with a spot Bitcoin ETF, you have to have the actual asset. You have to buy real Bitcoin, and that comes with on-chain data. Bitcoin is not anonymous. It is pseudo-anonymous, but that means that it is verifiable. It is publicly auditable. So all of this activity, number one, is going to be very transparent. And it also is going to be the green light for the masses to now have exposure to the price fluctuations of Bitcoin. Now, granted, anyone who is purchasing a Bitcoin spot ETF, a Bitcoin futures ETF, any kind of a product that is representative or tracking the price of Bitcoin is not buying real Bitcoin. For some people, that is a great idea. For some people, it's horrible. And like I said in the previous video, it all depends on your particular mindset, your particular awareness of the traditional financial system, your awareness of why Bitcoin was created in the first place, and your awareness of wanting to have a plan B or not. Some people are very intimidated by the thought of even creating an account on a cryptocurrency exchange and making that purchase themselves. Some people are even more intimidated by self-custody, which is something I discuss all of the time. So if you've been a subscriber, at least for a week, you would know exactly my feelings on that mindset. I think you're fully capable of it, by the way. But regardless, I think this is a very watered down version of people's exposure to Bitcoin. It's the most superficial way to get exposure to Bitcoin, is just speculating on the price. But what it is doing, I think, underlying, is granting the masses a type of validation for Bitcoin, a type of approval that will make them more comfortable with this idea of cryptocurrencies. So when a Bitcoin spot ETF is finally launched and you're already holding Bitcoin, what does this mean? If you're not yet holding Bitcoin, but you're planning to, and you want to know when is the best time to perfectly time the market, you definitely need to understand this, is that there's a limited supply of Bitcoin. We are saying this all the time on this channel. There will ever only be 21 million Bitcoin created. There have already been 19.5 million Bitcoin created. Of that 19.5 million, already there's been 3 or 4 million, at least 3 or 4 million Bitcoin that have been lost forever. So if we're keeping track here, 21 million minus, let's say, 4 million, we're sitting at 17 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. And when we're opening the doors to these multiple trillion-dollar institutional investors who all want to get their hands on the real deal, that scarcity is going to become incredibly apparent. Now, when you match this on top of the halving event, which happens every 4 years, where the rate of emission of Bitcoin is cut in half, that scarcity has become all the more apparent. So for those of you who are already holding Bitcoin, you're going to reap the benefits of recognizing that scarcity, recognizing the value of Bitcoin intrinsically without this validation of the masses, of institutional investors, of governments or regulators. And for those of you who are still waiting, you're going to be buying at higher prices, most likely. I know I'm sounding very bullish here, like there's never going to be another dip in Bitcoin, and of course that will happen. But what a lot of people think, and I tend to agree, is that this is a very unique moment in history where there is an asset class that exists after institutional investors are already in the market. We're seeing the floodgates open, but the floodgates are to the investors, not for the asset class. The asset class isn't going to come flooding out because it has a scarce supply. You know what I mean? So the supply is going to be in very, very high demand. And you really need to take that seriously if the goal is to accumulate more Bitcoin and you're limited on your end of how much you're able to purchase. You might find that the price of Bitcoin is trending higher and higher and higher, and you're going to be disappointed maybe that you were more focused on trying to perfectly time the market rather than doing so, let's say, by dollar cost averaging in a responsible, stress-free type of way with a long-term perspective. I think that's really important. Now, another thing that people are speculating on is that, yes, to an extent, of course, these institutional investors and this ETF approval will allow for some type of price manipulation. I'm not denying that whatsoever. And to that degree, people are thinking that, once the floodgates are open for these spot ETFs and these institutional investors get their hands on all the Bitcoin that they possibly can, because they're going to want to, they're going to suppress the price, much like what's happened with gold. There's definitely an argument to be made about gold ETFs versus Bitcoin ETFs, and it all has to do with blockchain technology, okay? Anything that's happening with Bitcoin is transparent. Like I said before, it's auditable by the public. You don't have to have any special credentials to view the Bitcoin blockchain, and that's the beauty of it. So maybe we're going to see a huge pump in this Bitcoin price, especially for this incoming bull market, and after that, maybe it's going to level off. I've talked to several people in this space, and they all seem to agree with that as well, but we're just going to have to wait and see. In the meantime, you guys, try not to FOMO in, dollar cost average, and do what you can to educate yourself to strengthen your long-term perspective on this amazing new asset that is Bitcoin. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe. I'll see you later.